It should have opened. That's what I thought, because everything was correct. The key, the angle, the motion, all of it. Inserted the key, turned it slowly, felt the mechanism move one pin, then another. Everything aligned. I knew the moment, that exact point where it always clicks, where it gives, where the door opens. But this time, it didn't. I stopped. The key was fully turned, exactly where it should be. And yet nothing, no click, no release, just tension, like something was holding it. I turned it back, then tried again. Slower this time, careful, precise, again. Everything aligned, everything felt right, and again. No, click. I stepped back, looked at the door, then at the key, then said quietly, "That should have worked." Because it should have. There was no mistake. No resistance, no misalignment, just absence. I tried again. This time faster, turn, stop, same point, same moment. Still nothing. I exhaled. Slowly, because now it wasn't about the lock, it was about that moment. That exact point where it almost opened. I stood still, then tried something different. I turned the key and held it there, at that exact position where it should have clicked. Waited, 1 second, 2, nothing, I released it. Turned it back. Then again, same result. I stepped back again. And this time, I noticed something. The feeling that almost. It wasn't random, it was precise, consistent, always the same point, always the same moment. Just before it should open. I looked at the door, then said quietly, "You stop there." The silence didn't respond, but it felt accurate. I tried again, turned the key, reached that exact point, and stopped. This time, I didn't expect it to open. I just stayed there, holding it, feeling it, and for a moment, I thought it might, just slightly, just enough, but then nothing, still no click. Still no release, just that exact edge, between locked and unlocked. Pulled the key out, looked at it, then back at the lock, and quietly said, "You don't go past that." I tried again, again, each time same point, same. Almost. Never more. Never less. Perfectly consistent. And that was the problem, if it was broken. It would fail differently, if it was worn, it would vary, but this was exact. I stepped back, because now I understood something, It wasn't failing, it was stopping. At the same moment, every time, I leaned closer to the lock, listened, turned the key slowly. 1, pin, 2, 3, everything aligning, everything correct. And then silence, right before the click. Froze, because now I could hear it. The missing part. The click that should be there, WS and single quotes to not delayed, not weak, absent, like it never happened. I stepped back slowly, then said, "There is no click." The words felt strange, but true. I tried again. This time I closed my eyes, turned the key, felt the movement, felt the alignment, reached the point, waited, nothing, I opened my eyes, then slowly said, "It ends there." Because it did, every time, same position, same limit. I stood there, key in hand, and for the first time, I didn't try to open the door. I just stood at that moment, that exact point, where it almost happens, and doesn't. And slowly I realized something that moment. Felt complete. Like it wasn't missing anything. Like it wasn't supposed to go further. I lowered my hand, looked at the door. Then said quietly, "What if this is the end?" No answer, but the idea stayed, because now it didn't feel like something failed, it felt like something wasn't meant to continue. I stood there, not trying anymore, just aware, of that exact point, that exact limit, that exact moment where everything is ready but never happens. I didn't leave the door. Not after that, because now it wasn't just a lock, it was a point. A boundary. Something exact. I stepped closer again, raised the key, inserted it slowly, turned it dot carefully, dot listening, dot feeling, dot one pin, dot two, dot everything, aligned, dot perfect, dot, and then I reached it. That exact point. The moment before it should open. I stopped, dot, held it there, dot, and didn't move, because now I wasn't trying to open it. I was trying to understand it. I waited, dot, nothing, dot, no click, dot, no shift, dot, tension. I exhaled slowly. Then, very slightly, I pushed further. Just a fraction, dot, almost nothing. And immediately, it resisted, dot, not strongly, dot, just enough, like something was preventing it. Not breaking, dot, stopping, dot. I froze, dot, then slowly turned it back. The resistance disappeared. I tried again. Reached the same point, dot, stopped, dot, then pushed again, dot, same result, dot, always the same. I stepped back, dot, because now it was clear. There was no beyond. Only up to that moment. I stood there, dot, thinking, dot, then said quietly, there is no next step. The silence held, dot, unchanged, dot, I tried something different. I turned the key, but this time I didn't stop at the point. I moved quickly, trying to pass it. To force the motion through, dot, and dash, nothing, dot, not. Even resistance, dot, the key simply stopped. Exactly at that same place, dot, as if anything beyond it didn't exist. I stared at it, dot, then said quietly, you can't go further. The words felt accurate. Final. I removed the key, looked at it, dot, then looked at the door, dot, and for a moment, I noticed something new, dot, the handle. I reached for it, turned it, dot, and it moved, dot, slightly, dot, not fully, but enough. I froze, dot, because that shouldn't happen. The door was still locked. I turned the handle again, dot, same result. Small movement, dot, not enough to open, but not fully locked either. I stepped back, dot, because now this wasn't just about the key, dot, or the lock, dot. It was about the state. I leaned closer, turned the key again, reached the point, held it there, dot, then dash with my other hand. I touched the handle, dot, slowly turned it, dot, and this time it moved further, more than before. I stopped, because that was new. I released everything, stepped back, then tried again, dot, key, dot, turn, dot, point, dot, hold, dot, handle. Turn. Again, more movement, dot, not fully open, but closer. I exhaled slowly, dot, because now I understood something, dot. It wasn't meant to open in one motion. The key alone wasn't enough, dot, the handle alone wasn't enough, dot, but together something changed. I tried again, more carefully, dot, turn key, dot, hold, dot, turn handle, dot, this time the door shifted, just slightly. A small gap, dot, almost open. I froze, because this was it, the closest it had come. I held it there, didn't move further, because I knew this was the same pattern. Almost, dot, always almost. I slowly pushed the door, dot, and it stopped, right there, dot, at the same point, dot, not fully open, not fully closed, dot, just between. I stepped back, breathing slower now, because now it was undeniable. Everything led to the same place. The key, dot, the handle, dot, the motion. All of it ended in that same moment. That same, almost. I looked at the door, dot, at the small gap, dot, at the incomplete opening, then said quietly, this is as far as it goes. The silence didn't respond, but it didn't need to, because now I understood something clearly. There was no full open, dot, no full release, dot, no completion, dot, only dash approach, dot, alignment, dot, and stopping. I stepped back slowly, then looked at the key in my hand, and said, what happens if I don't try to finish it? The question stayed, because now trying to complete it was the only thing that never worked. I didn't try to open it, dot, not this time. I stood in front of the door, dot, key in hand, and did nothing, because now I understood something, dot, it wasn't that it couldn't open. It was that I kept trying to finish it, and every time I did it stopped, dot, at the same point. I stepped closer, dot, slowly, dot, inserted the key, turned it, reached that moment, that exact position, where everything aligned dot, and then I stopped. I didn't push further, didn't touch the handle, didn't try to open the door. I just stayed there dot holding it, letting it be incomplete. A few seconds passed. Nothing changed dot the tension remained. That same, almost. But this time, it didn't feel blocked dot it felt stable. I exhaled slowly, then released the key, let it return, stepped back. The door stayed closed, but something was different dot the feeling. Less resistance dot less pressure. I tried again dot key dot turn dot stop at the point dot hold dot and again no resistance dot no need to push further. Just that moment dot complete on its own. I nodded slowly because now it made sense. That point wasn't incomplete dot it was the end. I stepped back, looked at the door dot then at the key, and quietly said, it was never supposed to open. The words didn't feel wrong. They felt accurate. I stood there dot thinking dot then tried something else. I didn't insert the key. I just touched the handle. Turned it slightly dot it moved. Little dot same as before. But this time, I didn't try to open it. I just let it be dot halfway dot incomplete. I released it. Stepped back. Then I noticed something. The door didn't feel closed anymore. Not fully. Not completely sealed dot, just present. I stepped closer again. Placed my hand on it dot and slowly pushed dot not fully. Just slightly. And this time, it moved. A little more than before. I stopped immediately. Didn't continue. Didn't try to open it. Just observed. I stepped back. Then said quietly, it moves when I don't finish it. The silence held, but the pattern was clear. Every time I tried to complete the action, it stopped. But when I didn't, it changed. I tried again dot no key. Just the handle. A small turn. A small push dot stopped. The door moved slightly. More than before. Still not open. Still not closed dot just. Between. I stepped back dot because now I understood something new. The door wasn't meant to open in one moment dot. It was meant to shift dot gradually dot through incomplete actions. I walked around the room dot slowly dot thinking dot then returned to the door. Looked at it dot and for the first time, it didn't feel like something I needed to open. It felt like something already in progress. I placed my hand on it. Again, gently pushed slightly. Stopped. The gap widened. Just a little. I leaned closer, looked through the opening dot, and saw dash something dot not clearly. Just space dot different dot not the hallway. I froze, because that wasn't right. I stepped back, immediately. Closed the gap slightly dot, and the space disappeared dot back to normal. Just a door. I stood there, breathing slowly, then said quietly, it's not the same on the other side. The silence didn't respond, but I didn't need it to, because now it was clear dot the door didn't open all at once, because what was behind it wasn't fixed either, and the only way to reach it was not to finish the action, but to let it remain almost. I didn't rush it. Not anymore dot, because now I knew something important. The door didn't hide a fixed space dot, it revealed one, depending on how far I opened it. I stood in front of it, the small gap still there, barely visible, but enough. I leaned closer, looked through it dot, and this time I didn't try to understand what I saw. I just observed dot it wasn't the hallway. That much was clear, but it wasn't completely different either dot. It looked incomplete dot like a space that hadn't fully formed. Edges. Soft dot details unclear. I stepped back slightly. The gap closed a little. And instantly, the space vanished. Just the door again, dot normal, dot I nodded slowly dot, so that was it dot the space existed only at that exact point. That, almost. I stepped forward again, placed my hand on the door, pushed slightly dot stopped, dot the gap returned. I looked through it again. This time, the space was clearer. Not fully, but more defined. I noticed something new. Depth. Distance, like it extended further than it should. I exhaled slowly, then said quietly, "It's building." The silence remained, but the idea stayed. I pushed a little more. Very carefully. Just enough. Then stopped. The gap widened, and this time, the space changed. Not dramatically, but noticeably. More structure, more detail. Still not complete, but forming. I stepped back. Immediately. It faded. Returned to nothing. I stepped forward again, repeated the motion, and again it appeared. I nodded. Because now the pattern was clear. The door wasn't opening into a space. It was creating one. Gradually. With each incomplete movement. I stood there, thinking. Then said quietly, "It only exists while I don't finish it." The words felt precise. Accurate. I tried again. Small. Push. Stop. Look. The space appeared, slightly clearer than before, more stable. I leaned closer, and this time I saw something specific. A shape. Not fully clear, but recognizable. A wall. I froze, because that meant it wasn't random. It was becoming something. I stepped back slightly. The shape faded. I stepped forward. Again. Returned to the same position. The wall returned, more defined. I exhaled slowly, because now I understood something deeper. It wasn't just forming. It was remembering, or being remembered. I pushed the door a little. More. Stopped. The space expanded. The wall clearer. Another shape appeared. A corner. I stepped back again. Everything faded. I stood there. Thinking. Then said quietly, "It needs the same position." The silence held, but the pattern confirmed it. I returned to the exact angle. Carefully. Slowly. Matched the previous position. And again, the same shapes appeared. More stable now. Less fading. I leaned closer. And for the first time, I could almost see inside. Not fully, but enough. Enough to know it wasn't the hallway. Step back. Closed the door slightly. Everything disappeared. I stood there. Key still in my hand. Door in front of me. And quietly said, "It doesn't exist on its own." Because now it was clear. That space only existed in that moment. At that exact point. In that incomplete state. I looked at the door. Then at my hand. Then said, "What happens if I go further?" The question stayed. Because now I knew one thing for certain. If I ever opened it fully, that space might disappear completely, or become something else. And there would be no way to go back. I didn't move right away. Not after that. Because now it wasn't just curiosity. It was a decision. The door in front of me slightly open. Not fully. Never fully. And behind it something that only existed like this. Incomplete. Unfinished. I stepped closer. Slowly. Carefully. Placed my hand on the door. And held it there. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just present. Because now I understood the risk. If I finished the action, everything would change. The space. The moment. The way it existed. Or maybe it would disappear. I leaned closer. Looked through the gap. And this time, it was clearer than ever. The wall. The corner. The shape of a room. Not complete, but enough. Enough to feel real. I exhaled slowly, then said quietly, "This only exists like this." The silence didn't respond, but it didn't need to, because now I understood something final. That space wasn't waiting to be opened. It was already exactly as it should be. In that moment. In that. Almost. I pushed the door slightly. Just a fraction. Then stopped. The space expanded. More detail. More structure. More presence. I froze. Because now it felt stable. Like it could become real. If I went further. I stepped back. Immediately, it faded. Returned to that incomplete state. I Stood there, breathing slowly. Then nodded dot, because now the choice was clear. I could finish it. Open the door dot, step through dot, and see what it becomes. Or I could leave it like this dot, always almost. Always. Present dot, never fixed, never gone. I looked at the door dot, at the gap dot, at that fragile space, existing only because I didn't complete it dot. Then slowly I removed my hand. Let the door settle dot, not fully closed, not fully open. Exactly where it had always been. That point, that moment. Step back. Didn't try again. Didn't test it dot, because now I didn't need to. I walked away from the door dot, slowly dot, each step quiet. Measured dot, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was leaving something unfinished. I felt like I was leaving it exactly as it should be. I stopped in the middle of the room, turned slightly, looked at the door one last time. The small gap still there. Unchanged dot, stable dot, and quietly said, "It was never meant to open." The silence held, but it felt complete dot, not because something ended, but because nothing needed to. The door remained. The space remained. That moment between dot, unfinished dot, and perfectly still there.